My father-in-law died in battle. My husband and his cousin had long since run away together. My mother-in-law, struck by grief, suffered a stroke and became paralyzed. The 3 married daughters of the family returned under the pretense of caring for her, only to strip the general's residence clean of all its wealth. Out of loyalty, I devoted 10 years to caring for my mother-in-law. She was a proud, strong woman. Unable to bear being a burden, she swallowed gold to end her life. But no one knew she didn't die. She was reborn on the very day I entered the general's mansion as a bride. On my wedding day, my husband eloped with his cousin. In an instant, I became the laughingstock of the capital. Around me, the whispers of the guests buzzed like flies. The Shin family has been in decline for years. The Gu family once saved their lives. It's improper of them to force a marriage on the Gu son just because of an old engagement. Gu Qinglan and Miss Liao grew up together in the general's residence, childhood sweethearts. Forcing them apart only pushed them to run away together. Hearing those words, I could only clutch my sleeve tightly. It wasn't that I, Shinfu, insisted on marrying into the Gu family. It was the Gus who, wanting Gu Qinglan to pursue a scholar's path, forced him to wed me, the granddaughter of the late Grand Preceptor. A month ago, Madame Gu brought with her the old betrothal document between my grandfather and her late husband, demanding that the Shin family fulfill the promise from generations past. My father, a man of honor, agreed without hesitation, even though he knew the Gus had their own motives. Yet on the wedding day, Gu Qinglan fled with Liao Qingyan. No one from the Gu family stood up to resolve the disgrace. They only waited to watch me, the abandoned bride, become a joke. I reached up to lower the red veil, intending to speak, when Madame Gu's voice rang from the head of the hall. The old engagement between the Gu and Shin families never specified which of the young men it was meant for. Since Gu Qinglan has proven unworthy of Miss Shin. Then, she turned toward the corner of the hall. Qingzhou, would you be willing to marry Miss Shin in his place? I knew then, no matter what, I would still be entering the Gu family today. Following her gaze, I looked toward the corner. There stood a man in armor, tall and cold, exuding the sharp scent of blood. It was Gu Qingzhou. Unlike the gentle grace of a scholar, he carried the aura of killing intent. Gu Qingzhou was the adopted son of the Gu family. Years ago, the old general was injured on the battlefield, leaving him unable to father children. Madame Gu adopted 3 daughters and 1 son from within the clan. As for Gu Qingzhou, he was a child she had picked up on her way to a temple. Of the 5 Gu children, not one was born of her blood. Few knew this, it was a forbidden secret. I am willing. General Gu, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke. His tone was heavy, displeased. This is Qinglan's wife. If Madame weds her to Qingzhou, then what of Qinglan? I drew a deep breath, suppressing the anger rising in my chest. Gu Qinglan had already run away with Liao Qingyan. Was I supposed to be so magnanimous as to send someone to fetch him back, so he could have both a wife and a concubine? That thought barely formed when Madame Gu's voice rang out, echoing the very words in my mind. Gu Qinglan has already eloped with that fox spirit. Should Miss Shin now send someone to retrieve him, only to let his wife and concubine live under the same roof? A flicker of surprise crossed General Gu's face, as though Madame Gu had struck precisely at his thoughts. Seizing the moment, she continued swiftly. The Gu family will not stoop to such shameless acts. Today, Miss Shin has entered our gates, she cannot be sent back. Turning to me, Madame Gu's gaze softened with feigned guilt. Miss Shin, this is truly an injustice to you. But tell me, what do you think of this child, Qingzhou? If you're willing, I shall let you 2 bow before the ancestors and complete the ceremony. She was right. I had already stepped into the Gu household. If I were sent back now, it wouldn't be the Gu family that lost face, it would be my parents. I am willing. I answered quickly, before General Gu could object. And just like that, the marriage was sealed in a single breath. I caught the faint glint of killing intent in General Gu's eyes as he looked toward Madame Gu. But it passed swiftly, replaced by a forced, bitter smile. "Very well," he said lightly, "since Madame wishes it so, and both the young ones agree, I have no objection." I shook off the uneasy thought that he might wish her harm. After all, rumors always spoke of how devoted the two were, the model couple of the capital. I pulled myself back to the present. Marriage was marriage, no matter to whom. This union, at least, would repay the old debt of gratitude owed by the Shin family to the Gus for saving us from destruction years ago. The Shin clan might have declined, but our bloodline endured. From now on, the Gu family would have no right to invoke old favors. Madame Gu was delighted. During the tea ceremony, she unfastened the key ring at her waist and placed it in my palm. Gasps spread among the guests. "Madam, why would you hand the treasury keys to Shinfu? Has mother gone senile? Shinfu just entered the family, she's still an outsider. How could you entrust her with the treasury?" I turned toward the speaker, Gu Qinglun's elder sister, Gu Qingyue, married 3 years ago. It was said that back then, Madame Gu had adopted 3 daughters and 1 son from a widowed relative with no home. Even their mother had been taken into the residence and treated with honor. Today, neither Gu Qinglun nor his mother were present. Only his 3 married sisters and their husbands attended. Madame Gu's gaze grew cold as she looked at Qingyue. Shinfu is now a daughter-in-law of the Gu family. You, on the other hand, are a daughter married off, spilled water that cannot be gathered again. You are the outsider here. Her voice sharpened. And this key ring, it belongs to my personal treasury. It is mine to give to whomever I please. No one has the right to interfere. Her words weren't only directed at Qingyue, they were for the general and every guest in the hall. Qingyue's face flushed scarlet. She bit her lip, eyes glinting with venom. Her mother, who had always been gentle toward her, had now humiliated her in front of everyone, all because of me. "Shinfu, you wretched woman. Just wait, I'll make you pay." Unaware that I had already earned her hatred, I accepted the keys with growing unease. Because I knew, Madame Gu's private treasury was unlike that of any other noblewoman. She came from a merchant family. Her mother, Madame Wu, had once been the wealthiest merchant in the entire dynasty. When Madame Gu married the general, Madame Wu had given 2/3 of her fortune as dowry. No wonder the private treasury of Madame Gu was said to be unimaginably vast. Everyone, the general, the adopted sons, and the gathered guests, was stunned. Even I could hardly believe it. Only one man remained unmoved, Gu Qingzhou. He showed no joy, no irritation, only calm indifference, as if the entire farce had nothing to do with him. Perhaps he hadn't wanted this marriage at all, and had only agreed out of respect for Madame Gu. That was fine by me. In the future, we could live as husband and wife in name only, 2 lives, separate and undisturbed. On our wedding night, I made my thoughts clear to Gu Qingzhou. He was silent for a moment, then gave a simple nod. We slept in separate places, I on the bed, he on the chaise. Near midnight, as I drifted into deeper sleep, I felt a warmth at my back, like a quiet hearth. Too drowsy to think, I slipped back into dreams. Somewhere in the haze, I thought I heard his voice whisper softly. "This time, it's my turn to protect you and mother." I thought I must have imagined it. 3 days later, the wedding rites concluded without incident. But just as Madame Gu sent 5 carriages of gifts to my family home, Gu Qinglun and Liao Qingyan appeared, boldly, at the gates of the general's residence. It was my first time seeing Gu Qinglun. Handsome, with the air of a scholar, but lacking the strength and spirit of the men in my Shin family. Beside him stood Liao Qingyan, draped in white, her beauty delicate as peach blossoms, her frail form swaying as though the slightest wind could carry her away. Liao Qingyan leaned softly against Gu Qinglun, her body supple as if boneless. When my gaze met hers, I caught the faint spark of provocation in her eyes. Provoking me? How ridiculous. As I studied them, they were also studying me. A trace of surprise flashed through Gu Qinglan's eyes, and the corner of his lips even lifted slightly. The look he gave me was one of quiet satisfaction, almost approval. A chill ran down my spine. Did he not know that I was already married to Gu Qingzhou? The very next moment, his words confirmed my fear. This unfilial son has been away for days, causing mother great worry. Yan Yan has already become my woman. I beg mother's permission to bring both Miss Shen and Yan Yan into the residence. To avoid wronging either, Miss Shen shall be the primary wife and Yan Yan the secondary. I caught the faint flicker of resentment in Liao Qingyan's eyes, but she quickly masked it with a soft, demure tone. Aunt, Yan Yan has already become cousin's wife, and is now your daughter-in-law. From now on, Yan Yan will care for cousin and serve aunt with all devotion. I will help shoulder the responsibilities of the household. And I'm sure grandmother and aunt's elder sister in the countryside will be most pleased when they hear the news. When they return, I will personally offer my respects and apologies. So that was why, 3 days had passed since my marriage, yet I had not once seen the old madam or Madame Yao, Gu Qinglan's birth mother. They weren't even in the residence. Madame Gu had not mentioned it, and Gu Qingzhou had been away daily, accompanying the general from dawn till dusk. As for Gu Qinglan's 3 married sisters, they had come by on the 2nd day after the wedding, likely intending to intimidate me. But Madame Gu had scolded them so fiercely that they left with their heads bowed. Even after attempting to beg for jewelry, which she flatly refused. So, I'd had no way of knowing why the old madam and that Madame Yao were away. Silence filled the hall. Displeasure darkened Gu Qinglan's expression. Shinfu, why aren't you saying anything? Do you mean to embarrass me and Yan Yan before mother? I could only marvel, how did his mind even function? Did he not see the situation before him, or notice the man standing beside me, Gu Qingzhou himself? Second uncle jests, I replied calmly. I'm merely your sister-in-law. How could I interfere in your affairs with Miss Liao? His face froze. Only then did realization dawn upon him, the 5 carriages loaded with wedding gifts behind me, and the icy stare of Gu Qingzhou at my side. Even from where I stood, I could sense the killing intent radiating from Gu Qingzhou. He wanted to kill Gu Qinglan. And rightly so. Had Gu Qinglan not eloped, Gu Qingzhou would never have been forced into this marriage. Mother, Gu Qinglan finally demanded, what is the meaning of this? Throughout the capital, people whispered that Madame Gu treated her adopted sons as her own flesh and blood. Gu Qinglan, especially, resembled the general so much, 4, perhaps 5 parts alike, that many believed him to be the general's real son. Madame Gu doted on him excessively, indulging his every whim. And truly, if not for such spoiling, what adopted son would dare question his own matron so boldly? Smack! A sharp slap cracked through the air beside me. Startled, I turned toward Madame Gu, only to see her hand rise again. Smack! 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 She struck Gu Qinglan again and again, each blow heavier than the last, her hand trembling from the force. I counted 37 slaps. At last, I heard her mutter breathlessly. My hand hurts, next time I'll bring a bamboo stick. Gu Qinglan's face was swollen, eyes wide with disbelief. He stared at her, stunned, as though unable to comprehend that she, of all people, had raised her hand against him. Even Gu Qingzhou beside me seemed taken aback, his lips parting slightly as if to speak, then pressing shut again. I understood his confusion. After all, Gu Qinglan had always been the one Madame Gu favored most. Mother, he stammered, voice hoarse. Why did you hit me? What did I do wrong? Gu Qinglan's voice choked as he spoke. By now, a good number of curious onlookers had gathered at the gate of the residence, making quite a scene. Madame Gu spared him no face and scolded him loudly. How dare you ask me why I struck you? You even had the nerve to bring that fox spirit back here. On your wedding day you shirked your duty, then ran off with that shameless woman. If you didn't want to marry Miss Shin, why didn't you tell me sooner? Do you think I could force you against your will? No, you sought to use the Shin family to pave your way into the civil service while despising your lawful wife, all the while sneaking after the woman in your heart. Do you think favors fall from the sky? Filthy, rotten, yet you return asking Miss Shin to treat you as a treasure and take you back as husband. I'd sooner. She stopped her tirade to shout to the servants behind her. The Gu household will not tolerate shameless, thick-faced children like you. I raised you all these years. From this day forth I sever the maternal bond with you. You are no longer a son of the general's residence. Guards! Cast out this pair of curs, don't let them sully the general's gates. The scene didn't match the story people had told me. Wasn't Madame Gu supposed to dote on Gu Qinglan above all? Mother, do you mean to cast me out? I am Qinglan, the son you love most. Gu Qinglan cried, rushing forward to clutch at her sleeve. But she raised her foot and struck his knee with a mighty kick. Crash! A loud sound, and Gu Qinglan went down in a woeful heap. He seemed frozen, muttering to himself. Mother loved me most, how could you abandon me? Liao Qingyan hurried forward and bent to support him, her gaze full of reproach as it shot at Madame Gu. Aunt, how can you treat cousin like this? Though not your blood, hasn't cousin called you mother for over 10 years? He has honored you for a decade. If not for cousin, a woman with no children like you would long ago have been abandoned in another household. Liao Qingyan's words set off a stir. The onlookers began to whisper and speculate. The eldest Gu son isn't a biological child, everyone knows that. But isn't the second son also not? That's not the real point. The point is, this Miss Liao implied Madame Gu cannot bear children. Could it be that none of the children in the general's residence are her own? If true, then the general truly adores Madame Gu. It was obvious Liao Qingyan was trying to use public opinion to force Madame Gu to relent. Smack! Another sharp slap rang out. This time, Madame Gu struck Liao Qingyan across the face. Did Aunt hit me because I spoke the truth about her weakness? Has shame driven her to rage? Liao Qingyan clutched her stinging cheek, a mixture of wounded pride and stubbornness in her eyes. She believed Madame Gu would never dare to reveal that the one who couldn't bear children was the general, not her. In Aunt Gu's mind, the general had always been everything. Liao Qingyan pressed on. Aunt treats cousin and me like this, aren't you afraid that when the general and grandmother return, they won't spare you? The general and grandmother adore cousin most of all. For the first time, I felt someone could be so foolish. This young Miss Liao didn't seem to grasp that the inability to bear children lay with the general, not with Madame Gu. In the 3 days since I entered the Gu household, Madame Gu had treated me far better than my own mother ever had. She lavished me and Gu Qingzhou with precious jewelry and valuables, handed me the private treasurer's keys, and paraded me before the managers of her enterprises. She even solemnly declared that, should misfortune befall her, all her properties would fall to me. Had I not restrained her, she would have gone to the legal office to transfer everything formally. I had once asked why she treated me so kindly. Madame Gu answered that on the night before our marriage she dreamed I was her own daughter. Though I did not fully believe the dream, I could not let her be maligned given her generosity. The crowd who did not know the truth began to gossip, and public sentiment started to tilt against Madame Gu. Liao Qingyan's triumphant face seemed to press Madame Gu into submission. But in bullying Madame Gu, did Liao Qingyan ever ask my opinion? Everyone knew that Miss Liao had lost her mother at a young age. Her father remarried not long after, leaving the girl pitifully neglected. Out of compassion, my mother-in-law took her into the Gu residence and raised her with care, loved her like her own. Every piece of clothing and ornament she wore had once passed through Madame Gu's own hands. The white silk gown embroidered with golden thread she wore today, that was a new design from the capital, released just 2 days ago, worth 1,000 taels. Each jewel adorning her was a priceless treasure, Madame Gu had never treated her poorly. And yet this was how she repaid that kindness. Humiliating the very woman who raised her, in front of everyone. Did she forget who had sheltered and fed her for all those years? Even if my mother had raised a dog, I said coldly, it would at least wag its tail in gratitude instead of turning around to bite its master. The word person may be simple to write, but being one, that's not so easy. Don't you agree, Miss Liao? I didn't mention Gu Qinglan's parentage. Instead, I turned my blade straight toward Liao Qingyan. After all, I wasn't sure how deep Madame Gu's affection for the general ran, nor did I dare expose the truth about their adopted children too easily. A murmur rippled through the gathered crowd. So Madame Gu raised Miss Liao for over 10 years. Then it's truly disgraceful of her to insult Madame like this. Poor Madame Gu, to raise a white-eyed wolf who bites the very hand that fed her. Those whispers made Liao Qingyan's cheeks burn red. She wanted to refute me, but everything I'd said was true. She had no words to fight back. Shinfu! She cried, voice trembling with fury. What right do you have to accuse me? If you hadn't shamelessly chased after my cousin, we wouldn't have had to elope. You're the reason Aunt is so angry, all of this is your fault. Smack. My hand met her cheek before her last word fell. Liao Qingyan, I said evenly, not everyone is as foolish as you. A month ago, it was Gu Qinglan who begged Madame Gu to bring the betrothal contract between our families to my house and propose marriage. He wanted to use the Shen family's influence to pave his path to an official's career. On the wedding day, he ran off with you instead. Did you really think I didn't know your scheme? You wanted to force me, out of consideration for both families, to accept your little plan to let him keep his wife and take you as his secondary. Just now, wasn't that exactly what you suggested? The crowd's whispers swelled louder. And gossip was the sharpest weapon of all. Liao Qingyan and Gu Qinglan's composure began to crumble under its weight. Liao Qingyan clutched her cheek, her eyes filled with venom. Shinfu, she hissed, do you really think my cousin ever wanted to marry you? He's only an adopted son in the Gu family, he has no real power here. It was Aunt who forced him to propose to you, hoping to raise a future top scholar for the family. None of this was his will. Even without the Shen family, my cousin's talent alone would have earned him first place in the imperial exams. Ah, clever, throwing filth back onto Madame Gu now. Gu Qinglan stood silently beside her, not denying a word. Someone from the crowd spoke up in his defense. It's true, young Master Gu is but an adopted son, how much say could he have in the household? Miss Liao's right. He's a student of the head of Qingshan Academy, a man of brilliant learning. 2 of his fellow students became the top scholar and the third-place finisher in the palace examination. For him to excel in the exams would be no surprise. I laughed softly, stepping forward until I was standing before Gu Qinglan. They might not know, but I did. Was Gu Qinglan truly gifted? Certainly not. If you were truly talented, I said, why did you cling so desperately to my family? Why did you beg my father to find you a scholar in court to tutor you? Then I turned to him fully. Tell me, Gu Qinglan, is what Miss Liao said true? Did Madame Gu really force you to propose to me? If he dared say yes, he would lose Madame Gu's favor forever. Gu Qinglan hesitated, then looked toward her and murmured. Mother, this son has indeed disappointed you. Ah, what an ambiguous answer. And yet it said everything. Murmurs rose again. So it's true then. Poor young master, raised by such a cruel stepmother. But Madame Gu didn't flare up in anger. Her face remained calm, icy calm. Well, she said softly, I've truly learned something today. To think I've raised a child so ungrateful. Gu Qinglan, you know the truth better than anyone. If you insist on slandering me and forgetting my years of kindness, then don't blame me for striking back without mercy. She turned sharply toward her servants. Bring everything here. Gu Qinglan's face twisted in panic. Mother, are you trying to ruin me? To drive me away from you? Fool. He actually thought he could threaten her. Did he still truly believe he was her real son? Madame Gu ordered her servants to bring out a stack of papers. She then instructed them to hand copies to the crowd that had gathered to watch. Here, she said evenly, is a full record of every expense and preparation I have made for Gu Qinglan and Liao Qingyan over the years. It also details the support I have given to all the children of the Gu family. Her tone was calm, almost detached. Years ago, to ensure that Gu Qinglan could study under the head of Qingshan Academy, our Wu family donated 50,000 taels of silver to the academy, a sum meant to fund poor students' education. The current top scholars of the realm, the top scholar and the third-place finisher, were among those very students. A murmur rippled through the onlookers. So it turns out, we all thought Gu Qinglan was exceptionally gifted, chosen by the head of the academy for his brilliance. But it was Madame Gu's silver that opened those doors. Gu Qinglan's face shifted through colors, green to purple, purple to black, like a painter's palette. Gasps rose from the crowd. Heavens! That's enough silver to last a lifetime. I glanced down at the papers in my own hands, even I couldn't help but draw in a sharp breath. Each sheet was a detailed record of every expenditure, from trivial purchases to large investments for every adopted child of the Gu family. It even listed the dowries of the 3 Gu daughters, and the occasions they had returned to the house to ask for more after marriage. Everything was meticulously recorded. Their dowries rivaled those of royal princesses. The sheer wealth involved was staggering. I stole a look at Madame Gu. I had to admit, she was remarkably shrewd. To think of documenting every coin and favor was foresight only a woman like her possessed. If this was oppression, then let Madame Gu oppress me too. Tie me up like a dog if she must, I would not complain. Truly, there are those who live in fortune yet never know contentment. Gu Qinglan's face had gone so dark it might as well drip ink. He had never endured such humiliation in his life. His eyes, filled with venom, burned toward Madame Gu. But she didn't even glance his way. Today, she declared, voice cold and resolute. We have all witnessed this farce. From this moment on, the Gu family has no son named Gu Qinglan. Aunt, you would disown cousin. Aren't you afraid uncle and grandmother will punish you when they return? Aren't you afraid uncle will abandon you? Liao Qingyan's shrill voice pierced the air. She couldn't allow Madame Gu to drive Gu Qinglan out. Once cast aside, they would have nothing. And so, she tried to threaten Madame Gu with the general's name. Gu Qingzhou and I both turned to look at Madame Gu. After all, in her heart, General Gu had always held the deepest affection. We both feared she might waver. But Madame Gu merely gave a sharp, bitter laugh. Abandon me. Her voice dripped with scorn. When I married Gu Changzhong, we hadn't even entered the bridal chamber before he was sent to suppress a rebellion. He was gravely injured in battle, so badly that he was no longer able to be a man. The one who cannot bear children is not me, but your precious uncle. If he dares cast me aside for an ungrateful foster son, the spit of the entire capital would drown him before I even had to lift a hand. Her words fell like thunder. The faces of Gu Qinglan and Liao Qingyan turned deathly pale. Aunt, how dare you slander uncle like that? Liao Qingyan stammered, horror-stricken. She had never imagined that Madame Gu would reveal such a humiliating secret in public, no longer protecting the general as she once had. Even I was momentarily stunned. Slander. Madame Gu's tone turned razor-sharp. Very well. She turned to Gu Qingzhou and tossed him a jade token. He caught it deftly. This is the Imperial entry pass. Go, summon the Imperial physician. I'll send someone to the military camp to invite the general back. We shall let the physician examine, right here before everyone, who it truly is that cannot produce heirs. Smack. A loud crack resounded. Liao Qingyan had just been slapped hard across the face. Cousin, you struck me, you actually hit me. Gu Qinglan's face was shadowed, cold as stone. Apologize to mother. Now. I wasn't wrong, why should I apologize to aunt? She's the one at fault. Gu Qinglan's face darkened even further. Liao Qingyan. At the fierce warning in his voice, she trembled, lips quivering. Unwilling but afraid, she bowed her head and murmured a reluctant apology. Aunt, it was my fault. Please, for uncle's and grandmother's sake, forgive me. Gu Qinglan followed, kneeling heavily and knocking his forehead to the floor 3 times. Mother, your son was wrong. Please, don't let this cause discord between you and father. Whatever punishment you deem fit, I will bear it. I frowned, studying him. Just moments ago, he'd been so arrogant, yet the mere mention of summoning the imperial physician had drained all the color from his face. Was he afraid of disgracing General Gu, or was there something deeper hidden behind this sudden fear? The matter of calling the physician and summoning the general, however, never came to pass. Because that very evening, the old madam and Madame Yao, the aunt from the clan, returned to the residence. In the main hall, the old madam's expression was thunderous as she glared at Madame Gu and Gu Qingzhou. That Wu woman. Get on your knees before me. Her voice cracked through the air like a whip. I was gone less than 5 days, and in that short time you dared to marry off Qinglan's wife to Qingzhou, a foster son. Not only that, you publicly humiliated Qinglan and Yanyan before the whole city, and even exposed Changzhong's injury. How could you be so cruel? So heartless toward a husband who has only ever cherished, respected, and loved you. Do you know what the city is saying about the Gu family now? You've dragged the name of the general's household through the mud. Is this how a matron of the house should behave? When she finished berating Madame Gu, her sharp, viperous gaze turned to me. And you, Shin Fu? What sort of upbringing did your Shin family give you? Do you not even understand that a woman may only serve one husband? You were Gu Qinglan's wife, how dare you remarry Gu Qingzhou? Shameless. Depraved. Your parents must be as despicable as you are. My expression iced over. I didn't hesitate. The Shin family's conduct is not for the old madam to judge. The current emperor himself was taught by my grandfather. Or are you suggesting that His Majesty too lacks propriety? Insolence. How dare you speak to the old madam like that? The sharp voice belonged to Madame Yao, Gu Qinglan's birth mother, the very woman who might have become my mother-in-law had he not eloped. Insolence. I shot back, my tone cutting cold. You should be the one to hold your tongue. Who gave you the right to raise your voice before me? I am the legitimate young madam of the Gu family, carried here in a grand bridal sedan borne by 8 men. You, on the other hand, are merely a dependent living under this roof. On what grounds do you dare shout at me? The hall fell silent in stunned disbelief. Before anyone could recover, I continued calmly. Gu Qinglan and Liao Qingyan ran away together, yet none of you have said a word about it. Instead, you turn your anger on Madame Gu and me. Tell me, who truly disgraced the Gu family's name? Don't play innocent, old madam. You know perfectly well the truth of it. You insolent little wretch. The old madam was shaking with rage, finger trembling as she pointed at me. She was used to ruling the household like a tyrant, she hadn't expected me to talk back. But despite my usually mild and well-mannered appearance, I met her glare head-on. If we're speaking of shamelessness, I said evenly. Then I fear your granddaughter-in-law cannot compare to you, to Liao Qingyan, or to Madame Yao. One of you hides behind age to bully others. One lowers herself to elope with another woman's husband. And one climbs where she doesn't belong, forgetting her place entirely. Shin Fu. Is this how you speak to your elders? The old madam's voice shook with fury. I only ever match my tone to that of the person I'm speaking with, I replied smoothly. If they're polite, I'm polite. If they're rude, I'm worse. So if my words offend, old madam, you'll simply have to endure them. Because I'm the sort who grows stronger when challenged, and fiercer still when provoked. The old madam's mouth opened in outrage, but no words came. Around us, the guests could only stare, some horrified, some almost admiring. The Shin family was famed for its refinement and education. Outwardly, I was always the picture of composure, elegance, and gentility, the perfect noble daughter. But every member of my family knew the truth. Beneath the calm surface, I was anything but ordinary. When I lost my temper, even I found myself frightening. As I glanced around, I noticed something strange. Neither Madame Gu nor Gu Qingzhou seemed surprised by my defiance. It was as if they had known all along what kind of person I truly was. How curious. The old madam trembled with fury, pointing a shaking hand at me. Guards! Seize this insolent girl, I'll teach her some respect today. Several old attendants stepped forward at her command. My eyes gleamed. It had been far too long since I'd stretched my limbs. But before I could move, Madame Gu and Gu Qingzhou stepped out in front of me. Please calm yourself, grandmother, Gu Qingzhou said firmly. Shin Fu spoke no falsehoods. If her honesty offends you, then allow me to bear the fault in her stead. The old madam's breath hitched, red-faced and trembling. You unfilial beasts. Both of you. Watching her nearly choke on her own rage, I couldn't help but cast Gu Qingzhou a look of quiet approval. You ungrateful beast. Do you think that just because you stole Qinglan's wife, this old woman will let you go unpunished? The old madam's voice dripped venom. The reason Shin Fu was married into this family was to help Qinglan rely on the power of the Shin clan. And now, she's been taken by a nameless bastard like you, Gu Qingzhou. My only regret is that I ever allowed Wu Jing to bring you into this house. Madame Gu's face turned cold as frost. It was Gu Qinglan and Liao Qingyan who brought disgrace upon themselves, shameless, self-indulgent. What do their sins have to do with Qingzhou or Shin Fu? Qingzhou. The old madam scoffed. He's nothing but an orphan with no name or bloodline. Have you lost your mind, that Wu woman? You think he can compare to Qinglan? Qinglan is the one this family acknowledges, the rightful heir to the Gu estate. No one else should even dream of inheriting a single coin. And Yan Yan is Changzhong's own niece. How dare you call her shameless? Something about the old madam's words made my heart stir. Yes, Gu Qingzhou was adopted, but so was Gu Qinglan. I turned my eyes toward Gu Qinglan. Not only did he resemble the general, but there was also a distinct similarity between him and the old madam, their brows, their eyes, even their expression bore an uncanny likeness. If someone told me he wasn't blood related to the Gus, I would never believe it. Both were adopted, yet clearly, Gu Qinglan's origins were far from ordinary. Madame Gu's voice rang clear. You may recognize Gu Qinglan if you wish, that is your affair. But as for me, I only acknowledge Qingzhou and Shin Fu. My wealth, Wu Jing's wealth, will belong only to them. Outsiders will not get a single coin. The Gu estate's prosperity, in truth, had always depended on her. Compared to her private fortune, the Gu family's holdings weren't even worth a speck of dust, not even a strand of hair. And one more thing, she added icily. Those two words, Aunt Yao, I no longer dare to claim. For years, I treated Miss Liao with kindness and trust, and she repaid me with betrayal. Whoever wishes to call themselves her aunt, let them. As for me, Wu Jing, I will never again acknowledge such a heartless girl as kin. With those final words, Madame Gu turned on her heel and led Gu Qingzhou and me away, ignoring the curses and shrieks that followed from behind. When we returned to her courtyard, her expression was composed but cold. She immediately summoned the steward. Bring every ledger and key to the Gu family's public treasury, she ordered. Deliver them to the old madam's quarters. Her voice was steady, her intent resolute. I was a fool, she murmured. All these years, I've been feeding wolves. The Gu family hasn't seen war or hardship in years, yet they've squandered every coin of their stipend. Let's see how they survive without me. It's easy to go from frugality to luxury, but from luxury back to frugality. Nearly impossible. The next day, Gu Qingzhou and I returned to visit my family. To my surprise, the cold, stoic man transformed the moment he stepped into the Shen residence. The supposedly hardened warrior became a charming, eloquent gentleman, intelligent, gentle, and considerate. He completely deceived everyone. My parents and 3 younger brothers adored him instantly. Before we left, my mother clasped my hands earnestly. "Qingzhou is a good man," she said softly. "You mustn't be so headstrong. Don't bully him, do you hear?" My 3 brothers, the same ones I'd terrorized since childhood, each tugged at my sleeve in turn. "Sister, please don't treat brother-in-law like you treat us." And my father, clearing his throat awkwardly. Ahem. Shinfu, live peacefully and happily, all right. I shot Gu Qingzhou a sideways glare. Very impressive. One day in my family home and you've already turned them into your allies. Gu Qingzhou blinked innocently, his dark eyes wide and pitiful like a drenched puppy. Behind him, my family all gave me matching looks of disapproval. Gu Qingzhou, this green tea fox. Half a month passed after our marriage. And I had to admit, I'd misjudged him. He wasn't just a green tea man, he was an actor too. Before outsiders, he remained the picture of stoic restraint, distant, disciplined, the perfect general. But before me, he transformed into someone entirely different, pitiful, clingy, and endlessly dramatic. He followed me everywhere, trailing behind like a shadow. No, like a piece of sticky candy that refused to come off. Every day, he found new ways to please me, little gifts, favorite foods, soft laughter. He was so attentive that I began to suspect my foolish family had secretly sold me out. That day, he even made my favorite pastries with his own hands. I was just savoring one when Gu Qinglan and Liao Qingyan stormed in, ignoring the servants who tried to stop them. Gu Qinglan's face was dark with rage as he glared at me. "Shinfu. What do you mean by this? It's the day for monthly stipends, yet you refuse to release the funds." I lazily glanced at Gu Qinglan, opening my mouth to accept another bite of pastry that Gu Qingzhou held to my lips. After half a month, I'd long grown used to him feeding me this way. If I refused, the infuriating man would put on that pitiful look again, as if I were bullying him. Worse, he'd run straight to my mother's house. Then my parents and 3 traitorous little brothers, all bewitched by his charm, would take turns defending him. I chewed leisurely and said, "And what does the Gu family's allowance have to do with me? I'm merely a daughter-in-law by marriage, not your patron nor your mother." Gu Qinglan's face twisted with fury. "You're utterly uncouth. The Shen family is renowned for propriety, how could they have raised such a daughter? The monthly silver for the household always came from mother's private treasury. Now that the key is in your hands, if you won't release the funds, who will?" I smirked. Uncouth. Coming from you. From what auspicious soil did such a paragon of virtue sprout? The man who ran off with another's fiancée, and dares lecture me on manners. I took another slow bite. Right now, the most famous man in the capital is none other than you, Gu Qinglan. TSK, the stories they tell are quite entertaining. I'm even considering paying a troupe to perform them in the marketplace, 10-15 days of drama to immortalize your glory. Besides, I added sweetly, you said yourself, that treasury belongs to Madame Gu, my mother-in-law. It's her private wealth, not public funds. I have the money, and I choose not to share it. What exactly can you do about it? The scandal of Gu Qinglan and Liao Qingyan eloping at the gates of the general's mansion had long become the talk of the city. Those who once flattered him now mocked him openly after learning he wasn't Madame Gu's blood son. And those who had always disliked him turned his humiliation into tales, written pamphlets distributed free to tea-houses for storytellers. Gu Qingzhou and I even went to listen once. The adaptation was excellent. Now, Gu Qinglan lived like a rat crossing the street, shunned and ridiculed wherever he went. Of course, he had no idea whom he'd truly offended. The Shin family's scholars filled the imperial court. Students of my grandfather and father had quietly ensured his disgrace spread far and wide. Provoked beyond reason, Gu Qinglan lunged at me, hand raised. But before he could touch me, a sharp crack echoed through the room, followed by a scream like a butchered pig. Gu Qingzhou, his face as black as the bottom of a pot, had caught his arm and twisted, breaking it cleanly. "Lay a hand on Shinfu again," he said coldly. "And next time, it won't just be your arm." He flung Gu Qinglan aside, and for a brief moment, I swore he glowed. Liao Qingyan rushed to her lover's side, voice trembling. "Cousin. Are you all right?" Gu Qinglan hadn't even married her yet, and the Gu family's reputation in the capital was already in tatters. She couldn't risk any further humiliation. Whirling on us, she shrieked. "Shinfu! Gu Qingzhou! You've gone too far. We came here under orders from uncle and grandmother to collect the monthly silver. Not only did you refuse to hand it over, but you even injured cousin. Just wait, uncle will have you both cast out of the general's mansion. Let's see who dares lay a hand on Shinfu or Qingzhou." The familiar, commanding voice rang out. Madame Gu, missing for 10 days, had finally returned. That day, after she had defied the old madam, the general had returned from the military camp. The old madam had immediately thrown herself before him in tears, demanding that he expel Gu Qingzhou. She even insisted I remarry Gu Qinglan, and at the same time, bring Liao Qingyan into the household as a secondary wife. As if that weren't enough, she demanded that I return to the Shin family and that my father compensate Gu Qinglan, even recommending him to the imperial scholars. If I hadn't lived through it, I'd have thought it a farce. She even tried to force Madame Gu to kneel and beg forgiveness. As always, the general initially tried to smooth things over, pressuring Madame Gu to yield, planning to placate her afterward. In front of everyone, he berated her, ordering her to kneel before the old madam. The old crone, seizing the moment, demanded that Madame Gu relinquish her authority over the household to Madame Yao. And most importantly, hand over the treasury keys she had entrusted to me. The general issued his commands one by one. But Madame Gu stood firm before us, her gaze icy and unwavering. Gu Qingzhou is the only child I personally chose to raise. Whoever wishes to drive him away will have to drive me out as well. Shinfu and Qingzhou are husband and wife. If anyone dares to touch a hair on her head, I, Wu Jing, will make sure they beg for death before I grant it. Then she turned and led us away, ignoring their shocked faces. Since then, the general had come several times to coax her. But each time, she threw him out without mercy. Finally, his patience ran dry. Cold and sharp, his voice carried from the courtyard. "If you keep defying me, then you no longer need to be the wife of this household." He was threatening her, using the very affection she once bore him as leverage. That day, Madame Gu left the Gu residence. 10 days later, she returned. Gu Qinglan, unable to contain his resentment, approached her. "Mother, I already admitted my mistake before the gates that day. How long do you intend to punish me?" He still believed she loved him most, that her coldness was only temporary anger over his failure to stand by her that day. Beside him, Liao Qingyan wept pitifully. "Aunt, do you know?" She sobbed. "Because you severed ties with cousin in front of everyone, he suffered terribly. All the noble sons who once associated with him have cut ties. Those who envied him now mock him openly. They've even turned the Gu family scandal into stories to amuse the public. The headmaster of Qingshan Academy has struck cousin's name from the student rolls, and the new top scholars have publicly denied knowing him. Uncle has been reprimanded in court by the emperor himself, mocked by his peers, all because of your obstinacy, because of Shinfu, a woman who serves 2 husbands, and Gu Qingzhou, who stole his brother's wife." Her tone was full of self-righteous indignation, her words gliding like a dagger wrapped in silk. Madame Gu and I exchanged glances, then burst out laughing. Madame Gu strode forward, seized Liao Qingyan by the hair, and slapped her hard across the face, once, twice, 3 times, again and again. "I want to see just how thick your skin truly is," she spat. "If you hadn't accused me of being barren that day, no one would have discovered that Gu Qinglan isn't my son, that he isn't a true heir of the Gu family. Every misfortune he suffers now began the day he ran off with you. You, vile, poisonous woman, ruined him as thoroughly as you ruined yourself." Liao Qingyan screamed, her hair disheveled, her face swollen and red. Gu Qinglan stood motionless, his face dark as storm clouds, hatred flickering in his eyes, but not for Madame Gu. He turned that venomous glare upon Liao Qingyan. Because it was true. She was the one who'd exposed his secret, that he wasn't Madame Gu's flesh and blood. And from that revelation, his life had unraveled. I could see it clearly now, the hatred twisting in his heart had shifted. Once, he blamed Madame Gu. Now, he would blame Liao Qingyan. Such was his nature, selfish, cowardly, forever finding someone else to bear his sins. Once the noble son of a powerful general and the wealthiest merchant woman in the empire. Now reduced to a mere foster son. The fall was too steep for his pride to endure. Madame Gu delivered one last resounding slap before shoving Liao Qingyan aside and kicking her to the ground. "Why are you still standing here? Get these 2 wretches out of my sight. From this day forth, if either of them dares step foot in this residence again, I'll have the culprits flogged myself." The servants, all loyal to Madame Gu, didn't hesitate. Within moments, Gu Qinglan and Liao Qingyan were dragged out into the street. I caught Madame Gu's hand. "Mother, there's something I must tell you." While she'd been gone, Gu Qingzhou and I hadn't been idle. The day I noticed how much Gu Qinglan resembled the old madam, and how absurdly partial she was toward him, suspicion began to stir in me. Could it be that Gu Qinglan was the general's real son? I told Gu Qingzhou my theory. He didn't ask questions, he simply believed me. With his martial skill and silent precision, we began investigating. After several nights of shadowing and inquiry, under a dim, windy moon, we saw it with our own eyes. The general sneaking into Madame Yao's chamber. The man said to be incapable of being a man was now very much alive and vigorous between her sheets. If not for Gu Qingzhou covering my eyes, saying he feared I'd burn them from disgust, I might have kept watching just to see how depraved the scene could get. Their lewd moans still rang in my ears, enough to make one sick. When I recounted everything to Madame Gu, she was silent for a long time. Then she sighed, coldly, bitterly. I already suspected as much. She revealed that during her 10 days away, she had gone back to the Gu family's ancestral town to investigate. What she found confirmed everything. Yao Yun, she said through clenched teeth, was once my mother-in-law's goddaughter. Her late husband was none other than Gu Changzhong, your father-in-law. Gu Qinglan and his 3 so-called sisters are his true-born children. That story about his battlefield injury, all lies. He never went to war, never suffered any wound. For years, right under my nose, he's lived with her, siring one child after another. And he used my money, my fortune, to feed that pack of 6. Her voice trembled with fury. I felt my own teeth grind in rage beside her. So, mother, what do you plan to do? Because knowing Madame Gu, a woman betrayed, humiliated, and used, I was certain she would not forgive easily. Madame Gu's expression turned to ice. I want every last one of them in the Gu family to live wishing they were dead. Word spread quickly that she had returned. The entire Gu family came crawling to beg for an audience. In barely half a month, the once proud household had collapsed. The general himself had lost his arrogance, bowing low, pleading for her forgiveness. But every morning, Madame Gu took Gu Qingzhou and me out at dawn and returned late at night, refusing to see any of them. "A few more days," she said coolly, "and they'll destroy themselves without my help." As our carriage rattled down the street one morning, she turned to me with a gentler tone. "Shinfu, what is it you like? Is there something you've always wanted to do? Whatever it is, I'll support you." Her words caught me off guard. There was, in fact, something I wanted, but for a woman raised within the inner chambers, my dream would sound scandalous. I feared it might shock her. Before I could answer, she smiled knowingly. "If you haven't decided yet, would you help Mother with something? Your grandmother's business stretches across the empire. Each quarter, shopkeepers from every province must hire escort agencies to bring back the profits safely. Instead of paying others, I want to establish an escort bureau of my own. Shinfu, will you help me build and manage it?" I almost laughed aloud. Was she a worm in my stomach? Ever since the emperor had punished the Shin family for losing the manuscript of a former dynasty scholar, I'd been secretly planning to form my own private network. Not a military force, but something close enough. An escort bureau was the perfect disguise. So the three of us, Madame Gu Qingzhou, and I, threw ourselves into building it. By the time the establishment was ready, Madame Gu decided to celebrate by taking us out for a short trip. But as we stepped out of the estate gates, a crowd blocked our path. This time, everyone from the Gu family had come, including the three married daughters, Gu Qingyue, Gu Qingwan, and Gu Qingning. The moment they saw Madame Gu, they burst into tears. "Mother, do you know how we've suffered in our husbands' homes because of you?" Of course, she knew. Ever since the truth of their adoption had been exposed, not only Gu Qinglan but also the three sisters had become pariahs. Their marriages, once gilded with prestige, were crumbling. Those noble houses had only agreed to the matches out of respect for Madame Gu, not for the general. Now that they'd discovered their Gu family daughters were imposters, their resentment burned hot. Madame Gu regarded the three tearful women with utter disdain. "If not for me, where would you be now? Without me, you'd still be scrubbing floors in some back alley, not living in fine mansions. I raised you, clothed you, educated you. When I was being humiliated, where were you? Did any of you come to ask how I fared? And now you stand here to scold me. Truly, you are all of the same rotten blood, ungrateful to the bone." She let out a cold laugh. That day, I only cut ties with Gu Qinglan. I forgot about the rest of you. Now that you're all here, from this moment on, you are no longer my daughters. Get out of my sight. The three sisters froze, stunned. They had never thought she would actually disown them, the mother who once cherished them like jewels. Their tears turned to resentment, trembling as they stared at her. "That Wu woman, you've gone too far." The general could bear it no longer. Seeing his daughters insulted, his voice shook with anger. "They called you mother for over 10 years. They've honored and served you all this time, what wrong have they done?" Madame Gu's expression twisted with fury. "And what wrong have I done, Gu Changzhong? I fed and clothed your entire brood. And how did you repay me? You betrayed me, mocked me, and still dare to stand here righteous. I'd have done better raising dogs than ungrateful vipers like you." "Sister, please don't anger yourself further," a trembling voice interrupted. "It's my fault, I failed to raise Qinglan properly. If you must take out your anger, take it out on me." Madame Yao Yun stepped forward, tears glistening as she played the victim. She looked pitiful, but I knew it was an act. In truth, she was exhausted. Ever since the scandal broke, chaos had consumed the household. Debtors and servants hounded her daily for silver. Even the three married daughters came begging for their monthly allowance. In the past, Madame Gu had always ensured that the three adopted daughters, Gu Qingyue, Gu Qingwan, and Gu Qingning, lived comfortably and with pride in their husbands' homes. Every month, she sent them generous stipends, along with fine jewelry, silks, and rare treasures for their in-laws. She wanted them to walk with their heads high, to be treated as noble daughters of the Gu family. But after their true lineage was exposed, their husbands' families didn't act against them, at least, not immediately. That changed the moment the first month's allowance failed to arrive. When Madame Gu cut off the silver and gifts, the three families promptly expelled the sisters from their homes. If Madame Gu herself does not come to retrieve you, their in-laws sneered, then don't even think of returning. Now, faced with ruin, Madame Yao tried again to plead for them. Sister, she said tearfully, for the sake of the bond between you and the three girls who have always called you mother, please, don't make things harder for them. I beg you, please forgive them. She began to kneel, but before her knees could touch the ground, Gu Qinglan and the three sisters rushed forward to stop her. Mother, there's no need to beg this woman. Gu Qinglan shouted, his voice sharp. You are our true mother, we won't allow you to kneel before an outsider. The four of them glared at Madame Gu, their eyes glinting with provocation. They thought they could anger her, make her lose her composure. Perhaps even force her to soften, to apologize. In their minds, Madame Gu's fury was only temporary. A fit of pride she would soon abandon once they pressured her enough. But they had gravely miscalculated. Without a word, Madame Gu turned toward the soldiers standing behind the general and commanded coldly. What are you waiting for? Drag them out of my sight. I was startled, but the guards obeyed instantly. They moved with precision, seizing Gu Qinglan and the others before they could react. You dare! The general roared, his face pale with rage. Do you intend to rebel? Madame Gu laughed softly. Gu Changzheng, do you really think these men serve you? Have you forgotten who their true master is? The color drained from his face. For the next few days, silence fell upon the Gu household. Not because peace had returned, but because despair had. That same day, Madame Gu did something even more ruthless. She produced a debt ledger so long it could stretch across the hall, and declared that every single coin she had ever given to the Gu family, every expense she had covered, was now a debt they were legally bound to repay. If you refuse, she warned, I'll go to the palace and bring the matter before the emperor himself. The once mighty Gu family had become beggars overnight. With their harassment finally silenced, Madame Gu and I found ourselves at peace again. She even paid a visit to my parents, praising me endlessly, calling me a gem among women. I wasn't foolish, I could feel her deep affection, her strange protectiveness, almost maternal. Had I not known my parentage beyond doubt, I might have believed I was her own daughter. But that peace didn't last long. After 3 demands for repayment, the Gu family's patience snapped. They resorted to poison in our food. They sent assassins to ambush our carriage. They schemed, begged, and plotted. Yet every plan they made, Madame Gu had already foreseen. We turned each of their traps against them. And she even ensured there were witnesses each time. Soon, tales of the Gu family's wickedness spread through the capital. Storytellers turned it into theater plays, crowds gathered at tea houses to laugh at their disgrace. The name Gu became a byword for corruption and betrayal. Then, just as the family sank into ruin, war broke out at the borders. The emperor summoned General Gu Changzheng back to lead the army. The Gu family rejoiced. Their pride revived, they paraded around boasting of their restored honor. I saw the flicker of satisfaction in Madame Gu's eyes. Her lips curved faintly as she murmured. Gu Changzheng, your reckoning has come. Together, we stood atop the city gates, watching as Yao Yun and her children tearfully saw the general off. Madame Gu's gaze was glacial. He no longer needs to pretend now, she said softly. Without my support, how long do you think he can last? Without my supplies, how will he feed his army? Her eyes glinted, cold and deliberate. This time, I will see Gu Changzheng ruined, his reputation shattered, his life worse than death. I realized then, Madame Gu knew more than she revealed. She had anticipated this war. Though she appeared calm, her preparations were thorough. Troops, logistics, grain, and coin, all under her quiet control. Before Gu Qingzhou departed with the army, she handed him a jade token. With this, she said, you can command the elite I placed within the ranks. Protect him, just enough to let him fall slowly. And when the general and Gu Qingzhou marched out, the Gu residents burst into noise and color once more. Like a festival masking the scent of doom. Old Madame Gu, Yao Yun, the 4 Gu siblings, including Gu Qinglan, and even Liao Qingyan, her face still wrapped in bandages, paraded before us daily, their arrogance unshaken. When father returns victorious, Gu Qingyue declared proudly, we'll all enter the palace with him to receive the emperor's reward. By then, we won't need Madame Wu to send us back to our husbands' homes, our husbands and in-laws will compete to welcome us themselves. Her voice dripped with mockery as she deliberately called Madame Gu Madame Wu, using her maiden name as an insult. Madame Gu and I merely smiled, offering no reply. Then Liao Qingyan stepped forward, voice full of venom. Madame Wu has been foolish for so many years. Why stop now? Just for the sake of 2 worthless people, you've offended both my uncle and my grandmother. When my uncle returns in triumph and the emperor showers him with honor, tell me, will there be any glory left for you? My uncle has already said it himself, if Madame Wu doesn't know how to treasure her fortune, it's only right that she hand it over to Madame Yao. Gu Qinglan said nothing, but the contempt in his eyes said everything. He too believed that his father would return undefeated. After all, with Madame Gu's backing, Gu Changzhong had never once lost a battle. But none of them knew the truth. Without Madame Gu's men and supplies, the once invincible general was nothing but an empty shell. At the frontier, his arrogance led his troops straight into the enemy's traps. One defeat followed another, until disaster struck. This campaign, he was not alone. The Crown Prince himself had been sent by imperial decree to accompany the army, serving as deputy commander for experience. And because of Gu Changzhong's pride and recklessness, the Crown Prince was captured by enemy forces. By now, urgent dispatches from the border should have reached the capital. Once the emperor read them, I doubted the Gu family would still have the nerve to boast, or dream of imaginary honors. Meanwhile, Madame Gu and I were ready. The escort bureau we had built together was finally about to fulfill its true purpose. Every guard we employed was a master of martial arts, handpicked by Madame Gu and Gu Qingzhou himself. On the 3rd day after Gu Qingzhou left with the main army, Madame Gu quietly sent 1,000 of our men to follow in secret. With his own troops and ours combined, Gu Qingzhou now commanded a substantial force. Then came the urgent report. The emperor, upon hearing that the crown prince had been captured, flew into a rage. The Gu family was immediately stripped of titles and placed under investigation. Days ago, their mansion had been a place of worship, nobles and commoners alike showering them with praise. Now, the gates were sealed, surrounded by angry citizens hurling rotten vegetables and insults. The grand residence of the great general was buried beneath eggshells and filth. That very night, before chaos could spread further, Madame Gu and I quietly packed our things and left the Gu estate. The family assumed we were fleeing in fear of Gu Changzhong's vengeance. But in truth, we were escaping his impending downfall. A month passed. Then, another imperial dispatch. Victory. The adopted son of the Gu family, Gu Qingzhou, had rallied 2,000 elite soldiers, crushed the enemy stronghold, and rescued the crown prince. He even captured the enemy's supreme commander alive. The crown prince, upon his release, immediately stripped Gu Changzhong of his command and appointed Gu Qingzhou as the new grand commander. In the capital, Madame Gu began moving swiftly. She ordered her merchants to send vast shipments of grain and supplies to the border in support of the new commander. Every chest bore her family seal, a silent declaration of who the true power behind the army was. By the time the new year approached, the entire empire was celebrating Gu Qingzhou's victories. When the peach blossoms bloomed in the 3rd month, Madame Gu and I rose before dawn and went to the city gates to await the returning army. My parents came too, along with my 3 foolish younger brothers, who chattered endlessly about their brilliant brother-in-law. Gu Qingzhou had been gone for nearly a year. Each month, he sent letters home, light-hearted, full of tales about the frontier, the weather, the food, the soldiers. Never once mentioning danger. He thought he could shield me from worry. But I had my ways. When I pestered Madame Gu enough, she would finally sigh and tell me the truth, about the near-fatal battles, the ambushes, the sleepless nights. I'd listen, biting my lip, tears threatening to fall. I swore to myself that when he came back, I would make him pay for hiding it all from me. At the other end of the square, the Gu family stood gathered, waiting eagerly for Gu Changzhong's return. Because Gu Qingzhou was still their adopted son, his triumph had spared them from the emperor's punishment. Old Madame Gu and the others were radiant, boasting loudly about the Gu family's glory. Then, the army appeared. When my eyes found Gu Qingzhou among the soldiers, my heart clenched. Even though I had prepared myself for this moment, I still hadn't expected him to look so thin, so worn. His frame was thin, his face pale beneath the sun, and a long scar cut across his cheek. A wound so deep it seemed to reach into my chest. My eyes blurred. I couldn't hold back the tears. From the moment that shameless man first clung to me like a piece of stubborn candy, I had already begun to fall for him. This relentless, gentle fool who now returned covered in blood and dust. Gu Qingzhou dismounted in one swift motion, then reached out and pulled me up onto his horse. Though spring had come, the wind still carried a cutting chill. He wrapped his arms tightly around me, his warmth chasing away the cold. Then, his low voice brushed my ear, soft, steady, and full of longing. "How long have you been waiting, that your hands are this cold?" My tears fell silently. "Gu Qingzhou, does it hurt?" His embrace tightened, his chest rumbled against my back. "No pain," he murmured. "None at all. For you, I'd carve out a world so bright that no one will ever dare hurt you again." His eyes held something I couldn't quite decipher. A quiet fire, something fierce and protective. But really, I thought, who could ever hurt me? If anything, I was the one who had always bullied others. That night, the emperor hosted a grand banquet to reward the victorious army. Every one of the Gu family was summoned. And so were we. The hall glittered with gold and silk. On one side sat old Madame Gu and her kin. On the other, Madame Wu and I, with courtiers and nobles gathered close, eager to show respect. When it came time for honors, both Gu Qingzhou and Gu Changzhong were called forward. Out of regard for Gu Qingzhou's achievements, and for Madame Wu's massive contribution of grain and supplies, the emperor chose magnanimity. He spared the defeated Gu Changzhong from disgrace, granting him a small chest of jewels and gold. Then, he turned to Gu Qingzhou, his tone bright with approval. "For your valor and strategy in battle, you shall be named Grand General of the nation." Applause rippled through the hall. Finally, the emperor's gaze shifted toward Madame Wu. "And you, Madam, what reward do you desire?" The hall fell silent. Madame Wu rose, bowed gracefully, and spoke, each word clear, deliberate. "This humble woman asks only for a divorce from Gu Changzhong." The effect was instantaneous. Gasps filled the room. Faces turned pale. Even the emperor's expression hardened. "Why?" he asked, voice colder now. "This is a day of celebration. Must you bring discord to a hall of honor?" Gu Changzhong's composure shattered. "That Wu woman. What madness are you spouting? Kneel and beg the emperor's pardon." Old Madame Gu collapsed into tears beside him. "Heavens have cursed this household. All because Changzhong lost one battle, now this woman wishes to cast him aside. Were it not for her meddling, draining his men, cutting off his rations, would he have fallen at all?" Her shrill voice echoed through the hall, and the wives of other nobles chimed in, pretending to console her while fishing for scandal. I moved, intending to speak, but Madame Wu caught my hand and gave a subtle shake of her head. Then the venom began. Old Madame Gu, Yao Yun, and the three Gu daughters poured lies like oil onto fire. They twisted every story from the past, even the day I first entered the Gu household. Our poor Qinglan, Yao Yun sobbed. It was that Wu woman who schemed everything. She feared the Shen family would despise Qingzhou, a mere brute soldier, so she pushed Qinglan forward instead. On the wedding day, she forced Qinglan to flee, then used the scandal as an excuse to marry Shen Fu to Qingzhou. A murmur swept through the crowd. The courtiers' eyes grew sharp, the air thick with speculation. It was clear, the Gu family was trying to ruin Gu Qingzhou's reputation to elevate Gu Qinglan's, trampling one son to lift another. But had they forgotten? They sat here today only because of the very man they sought to disgrace. Absurd. The voice came from the scholars' table. An elderly man rose, one of the empire's most renowned Confucian masters, famed for his integrity and disdain for politics. Utter nonsense. If Gu Qingzhou is a mere brute, then what does that make the rest of us? His declaration thundered through the hall. One by one, other scholars stood to support him. They praised Gu Qingzhou's writings, his strategy, his knowledge of the classics, calling him one of the most learned men of his generation. I blinked in astonishment. I had known he was brilliant, but to be recognized by these venerable men. My gaze drifted across the hall. And there, on the far side, I caught sight of my father and three brothers, grinning and winking at me. Ah. So that's what this was. The scholars each produced scrolls, essays, military treatises, and paintings, all bearing Gu Qingzhou's signature, gifts he had once exchanged with my father. They presented them to the emperor. As His Majesty examined the works, his stern face softened, eyes gleaming with admiration. And in that moment, between a fool with strength and a general with both wisdom and virtue, the emperor's favor shifted unmistakably toward the latter. Across the hall, the faces of the Gu family twisted. No one in the Gu family could comprehend when Gu Qingzhou had become so learned, so eloquent, his knowledge so vast and his reasoning so precise. They wanted to object, but the emperor's sharp, warning gaze froze the words in their throats. What the Gu family didn't realize was that their earlier slander of Gu Qingzhou had already disgusted the emperor. Madame Gu seized the moment. Calmly, she stepped forward and presented a stack of documents bound in crimson silk. Your Majesty, she said, her voice steady and clear, this humble woman seeks divorce not out of whim, but because Gu Changzheng and the Gu family not only deceived me, they poisoned me, stole my dowry, and moved my belongings in secret. Her words sent a ripple through the hall. On our wedding day, she continued, Gu Changzheng told me that a battle injury had rendered him incapable of fulfilling his duties as a husband. Out of sympathy, and to preserve his dignity, I agreed. Under his and old Madame Gu's arrangement, I adopted 3 daughters and 1 son, children said to be orphans of a fallen soldier. Moreover, I even welcomed their mother, Yao Yun, into my home to care for her. I treated them all as my own flesh and blood, raised them in luxury and protection. But who could have imagined, those 3 daughters and that 1 son I adopted were his biological children with Yao Yun. The moment her voice fell, the faces of the Gu family drained of color. That Wu woman. You dare slander us. Old Madame Gu shrieked. Madame Gu gave a cold laugh and handed her documents to the eunuch. If my words are false, let His Majesty summon the imperial physicians to examine Gu Changzheng himself. Let the truth decide. I beg your Majesty to grant me justice. She turned toward the emperor and bowed deeply. Earlier, old Madame Gu accused me of withdrawing support from the general, of withholding grain and troops, thus causing his defeat. But before the war even began, he poisoned me. He plotted my death to seize my wealth. Out of grief and self-defense, I recalled my people. Tell me, Your Majesty, was I wrong to preserve my own life? A murmur rose through the court. Then, a noblewoman spoke up loudly from among the ranks of attending ladies. I've heard this tale myself, it's all over the tea-houses. If it were me, I wouldn't have just withdrawn my men, I'd have reclaimed every coin and kicked the whole Gu family into the street. Laughter and whispers rippled through the hall. Madame Gu's eyes flickered with sharpness. As for the grain, Your Majesty, I withheld it because I feared it would fall into the enemy's hands. The Emperor's expression turned grave. Madame Wu, what do you mean by that? Madame Gu glanced toward Gu Qingzhou. He stepped forward and saluted. When my mother withdrew her men, Gu Changzhong sought replacements through his concubine, Yao Yun. The ones she brought in were not soldiers, they were enemy spies. The court gasped. Before the uproar could grow, the crown prince himself stepped forward. Father, what Qingzhou says is true. When I was captured, it was because someone in our army leaked the battle plans. Only Gu Changzhong knew my exact route. After Qingzhou rescued me, I ordered his immediate removal from command. Upon further investigation, I discovered that his strategist and guards were all enemy agents. His voice trembled with restrained fury. And that woman, Yao Yun, the one posing as his concubine, is no commoner. She is a princess of the enemy kingdom, who has been embedded at his side for years. The recent invasion, their knowledge of our terrain, it was all because Yao Yun stole our military maps and delivered them to her homeland through Gu Changzhong. The court erupted in shock. Colluding with the enemy, treason, was a capital crime. Yao Yun, who had been sitting beside old Madame Gu, suddenly lunged forward. Grabbing a jeweled hairpin, she pressed it against the old matriarch's throat. Let me go. Or I'll kill her right here. Old Madame Gu, still reeling from the revelation that her beloved daughter-in-law was an enemy spy, trembled violently. Yao Yun, you vile filth. She spat, her voice shaking. You've ruined our family. I should have let the soldiers drag you into an alley and tear you apart years ago. Gasps filled the throne room. The old matriarch's words were tantamount to a death sentence. Yao Yun's eyes blazed with hatred. With a scream, she drove the hairpin deep into the old woman's neck. Shut up! Gu Changzhong bellowed, charging forward. He tackled Yao Yun, the two of them tumbling across the floor. Traitor! He roared. You deceived me for years. I'll kill you myself to prove my loyalty to His Majesty. Even as his mother writhed in pain beside him, he ignored her, his eyes burned only with self-preservation. The rest of the Gu family stood frozen, horrified. The three daughters of Yao Yun wept, unable to move. But strength favored the general. He tore the bloodied hairpin from Yao Yun's grasp and, in a single motion, plunged it into her forehead. Yao Yun's eyes widened in disbelief. Why? She gasped weakly. Gu Changzhong, when I sent that map home, I could have left, gone back to my throne. But I stayed, for you. For Qinglan, for our children. And now, you kill me. Her voice broke into silence as she fell to the marble floor, crimson spreading beneath her like a final, damning confession. Gu Changzhong pulled out the hairpin and drove it in again, delivering a cold, fatal strike to Yao Yun's throat. You are a spy. You deserve no pity. He dropped to his knees before Madame Gu, wailing and begging. My lady, it was all Yao Yun's deceit. After all these years, haven't I treated her well? I beg you, for the sake of our years together, plead to His Majesty to spare me. From now on we will raise children and live in family blessings. Madame Gu stamped down hard on Gu Changzhong's most vulnerable place. Gu Changzhong, this is the debt you must pay. His scream of pain echoed through the hall, chilling everyone. The Emperor ordered that his mouth be sealed and handed him over to Madame Gu's judgment. She didn't bother to look at him. Calmly, she said. Take him out. Beat him to death with clubs. Leave the body for the wild dogs at the mass grave. The rest of the Gu family were exiled to hard labor. Old Madame Gu, having lost too much blood, died unwillingly with her eyes wide open. Madame Gu, Gu Qingzhou, and I received a great reward and returned to the general's mansion, though now it was called the Wu residence. Gu Qingzhou changed his surname to Wu. Madame Gu handed over the entire estate for me to manage. She spent her days in the kitchen with my mother, cooking nourishing broths and urging Gu Qingzhou and me to give her a grandchild to hold. On the very day Gu Qingzhou returned, we began to share a bed. After some time passed with no sign of a period, I happily smoothed my belly. When I learned I was pregnant, guards were sent to monitor the returning Gu Qinglan faction. The 3 married daughters, desperate to ease their disgrace, prostituted themselves to the officials sent to escort the prisoners. Gu Qinglan went mad, muttering strange phrases each day. Everything's wrong, everything's wrong. Gu Qingzhou was used by his father, maimed, left helpless, like that Wu woman who can't care for herself, tended to Bai Shenfu until death. That Wu woman swallowed gold to commit suicide, and Qin Yen and I returned to the capital to inherit the Wu estate after her death. That would be the right way. When I finished telling Madame Gu and Gu Qingzhou everything, they immediately dispatched men outward. Then the 2 of them looked at me solemnly and revealed they were both reborn. They recounted all the tragedies they had suffered in the previous life. Only then did I understand why Madame Gu had treated me with such extraordinary, irrational kindness, because in the prior life I had cared for her for 10 years without rest. Gu Qingzhou also confessed plainly that he had loved me across 2 lives. In the previous life, his disabled body made him too ashamed to express his feelings. This life, he risked everything to treat me as he did. Both Madame Gu and Gu Qingzhou had been reborn on the very day I set foot in the general's mansion. When they heard I might be married to me, the foolish man nearly let his guard down. Since their rebirth, Madame Gu and Gu Qingzhou had quietly gathered the Gu family's crimes as evidence, which is how they were able to overturn the entire clan so easily. Seeing the tense expressions on their faces, I smiled softly. I knew they feared that such unbelievable tales might be hard for me to accept. Whether they were my mother and Gu Qingzhou in this life or the last, they were the 2 people I, Shenfu, loved most in the world. The end.